Scott just made the point.
Civil seems to be a lot more secure, not just.
Well, from the business destruction of a small pizza shop in Indiana to the failure to aggressively investigate, expose, and hold accountable the ambitions of an imperial U.S. presidency, the endless, widespread failure of the press seems to have been the #1 trifecta topic in the 7 years that we've been doing this show. Now, as Steve Green points out in his trifecta segment this week, the University of Virginia fraternity falsely accused of rape by Rolling Stone magazine has decided to sue that magazine. And I say not only yes, but hell yes, and about damn time. Let's bring in Steve Green and Scott Ott to discuss the philosophical basis of this new war on old news. Gentlemen, there are accidents, there are omissions, and the law duly protects these unavoidable human errors by setting a pretty high bar. But there are also terms that have meaning when it comes to performance of a job. Malfeasance is one word, and criminal negligence are two others. Now, Steve, you can certainly make the case that medical malpractice suits on a whole have gone too far, but I don't think there's anyone old enough to remember the number of alcoholic or otherwise incompetent physicians back in the 60s and 70s. I don't think anybody can deny that malpractice suits have pretty effectively weeded out the serial offenders. Now, you're doing a segment on the Rolling Stone false rape story this week. Do you think that story shows malfeasance or criminal negligence on the part of Rolling Stone?
Oh, you know, what they did, the truth was criminal. I'm not sure there are any charges you can file for that, however. Being a lying douchebag is still legal when you have a First Amendment. And overall, that's for the best. We're going to suffer abuses like this. But
slander's not legal, though.
No, it's not. It's not. I don't know if this rises to the level of slander. You have to have if there's an absence of malice, and you know this is where it'd be libel, not slander. This is where you get into something very interesting. We've seen how the left works here, and you've done a really good job bringing these two stories together. The Indiana Pizza Parlor, which does, by the way, serve gays, it just doesn't want to cater a gay wedding, which is an entirely different thing, and this UVA case with Rolling Stone, because in both cases we see how the left acts. They see a way to oppress the majority and to give the unearned to whatever particular minority they think they need that vote, and so they establish a narrative. They establish a narrative that's going to anger the right people, to drum up support from the base. And this is especially important in off-election years and in non-election years like this one. And once they have this narrative, they whip people up. And it doesn't matter if they've got facts or anything on their side. The important thing, the key, is anger. You know, Ace of Spades pointed out on Twitter last week that this actually goes back to the French Revolution, that you whip up the angry mob to get them to help you impose your political will. Now, how do you stop that? You know, we've had really very little success ever since the French Revolution in stopping these angry mobs whipped up by the professional left from getting their way. Finding that key, that's the big challenge, I think, for America in the 21st century.
It's so funny because, you know, the idea of malice is something you have to prove in a case of slander. And the left has just made a malice. I mean, I don't think that would be too difficult. Yeah. Scotty, an employee of Memory's Pizza in Indiana, answered a hypothetical question posed by an infantile reporter trying to gin up a story. She never said the company wouldn't serve gay people. She simply said that hypothetically they would not attend a gay wedding. As a result of the irresponsible nature of the way this response was posed, the small company received untold death threats and may have to close. Now, Scott, do you think the fact that they have raised to date almost $850,000 in donations from around the country indicates that most Americans understand how out of control this left-wing press is? And do you further think that a lawsuit's an appropriate response for what was done to them on the basis of the personal ideology of the so-called reporter and her so-called editors?
I don't know if a lawsuit is the appropriate way to deal with this. In many ways, I think what has already happened is such a stunning rebuke to the mainstream media that if they had, if there was a living soul among them, they would wake up and take notice. When Crystal O'Connor, that charming young woman who answered the reporters' questions there at Memories Pizza, Crystal O'Connor is one of the co-owners of the place, and they've been running that business for 9 years. She's a small business person. She has to work another job to make ends meet, like a lot of small business people. She's not getting rich, and the fact that the people around the country have wrapped their arms around the O'Connor family and said, we're with you, and by implication, then we're against what's happening to you. We're against the people who are doing that to you, I think is a beautiful thing. I was a journalism major, as most folks know, at Penn State years and years ago. And one of the things that I noticed about journalism majors was there was almost a soft-hearted desire to see righteousness and justice done. They always were looking out for the little guy, and they really had a heart to see the right thing done. But then, or at least the way I learned it, the idea was justice gets done when you tell the truth.
Imagine.
It comes out of truth. And I think that whole paradigm has shifted to say justice, in what my picture of justice, be done, truth be damned. And I think that's where the professional journalism cadre cabal has lost the faith of the American people.
Yeah, you betcha. During our conference call that we always do the day before our taping, Scotty had mentioned that this kind of thing, suing news outlets for false or intentionally damaging stories, would be an interesting shot across the bow. Now, I replied that we don't need a shot across the bow. We need full broadsides, and we need to keep reloading and firing until this immoral and criminal left-wing ideology enforcement unit is flaming wreckage on the water. What the so-called press did to the University of Virginia fraternity and the pizza shop in Indiana was malfeasance. What they failed to do in covering everything from the way Obamacare was rammed down the nation's throat to Secretary Clinton's email treason to the catastrophic Iran nuke deal and all the rest is, in fact, criminal negligence. It's going to cost us the republic. And we need to get a fund together and sue these limousine communists into actually doing their job. Just put a few of them in jail, the way conservative journalist Dinesh D'Souza was put in jail, and just watch how it encourages the others. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.